Good morning.
Good morning.
So, first I wanted to say what an honor it is to stand before you. Not just because I get to speak and share the word with you, but because of where life has brought me up to this point. You know, I really love my job, my church, and my brothers and sisters in Christ, including all of you. And I thank you for tolerating me this morning. For some of you new folks who may not know who I am, my name is Ed Hallman, and I'm the general supervisor, the relatively new general supervisor here at the ARC, which kind of puts me over the warehouse and the stores. Some of you will get to know me regarding job changes and new pairs of shoes and all that sort of thing. So, the uniform I wear is an outward symbol of my commitment to God, and commitment to the principles, the doctrine of the Salvation Army Church. And that just means I'm a member of the church, and I've agreed to live my life in a certain way. And that's all it means. I'm not a baby major or anything like that, okay? Just a soldier, and there are soldiership classes held here, discipleship classes that are taught by the guys at the Citadel. And regarding the Citadel, we're not requiring attendance at the Citadel this week because we won't have a vehicle to take you there, but if you would like to go, if a couple of you would, I'd be happy to take you in the Equinox vehicle out there to attend that service. We won't be able to stay for Bible study, but we will take you to the service and give you a different experience in case you don't like me.
Oh, God.
British Prime Minister Winston Churchill once said that perfection is the enemy of progress. Now, what does that mean? The basic concept is that the pursuit of perfection or the pursuit of a perfect solution can restrict us from pursuing or accepting a result that is almost perfect, or good enough, or acceptable, reasonable, adequate, or even exceptional, but not perfect. This concept certainly comes into play in the realm of commerce, which means buying and selling stuff. Think of a time when you were haggling over the price of a new car or something you found on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Oftentimes, out of some vaguely defined principle, I would earmark this walk-away price for whatever it is I was trying to buy or sell. Firm in my mind, but really rather artificial in its purpose. But nevertheless, it represented for me, it defined my perfect result. I wanted a certain price where I would just walk away. And certainly, there was a time to walk away in situations like that, but in many instances, everyone would have walked away happier from the transaction had I been willing to give just a little bit more, or give up a little bit more. Maybe my reasons for holding my line in such cases related to greed, but the underlying cause was almost always some form of fear. And we're going to talk a little bit about fear today in this concept. What I really want to talk about is how this concept applies to us as Christians, trying to be good Christians, to take the next right step without knowing what the results are going to be beforehand. In short, I want to talk about truly trusting God, especially when that means putting some measure of trust in God's imperfect human servants. Now, the concept of perfection can refer to the desire for a flawless result, or really the fear of flawed results. In order to fulfill God's purpose for our lives and for us to do so without crippling anxiety, we must take that next right action in the face of such fear, with the assurance that in our hearts, for one thing, our efforts are going to be imperfect. Our actions are not going to result in a perfect result. Never will. Okay? But our perfect Father will work it all out for the best. And that assurance will help us to confront the fear of life's uncertainty and endure the challenges that are presented by unexpected or undesirable short-term results. And we know in all things God works for the good for those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. That's from Romans 8:28. Now, I've had some unlikely heroes in my life. I mean, likely ones, like my dad. He's somebody that I revere. I feared in the way I feared God back, when I was growing up. But today, having grown all older and having stumbled and made mistakes and be made, humble before him, I can now appreciate my father's advice. And I could really, I see him as a hero. But I've had some unlikely heroes in my life. Basically folks who were role models that may not have known they were role models at the time, and whose advice I probably, or definitely, didn't follow well at the time. When I was in high school, I had a band teacher. His name was Mr. Harry. Now, I was in the marching band for my freshman, sophomore, and junior, my first 3 years. I was in the marching band for the fall semester when they played football, and in the symphonic band for the spring semester. I played the trumpet. Not that well, but yes, I was a band geek. Anyway, Mr. Harry was a rather bombastic character at times, and I don't believe he really thought much of me as a trumpet player. But he did share with us an occasional pearl of wisdom. One of the things that he liked to say was, if you're going to be wrong, be loud and wrong. Now, I believe that Jesus would have appreciated this advice, this wisdom. See, Mr. Harry was not advocating deliberate mistakes, and nor does God. Rather, he was giving us permission to fail with a full-throated effort. He hated a timid note, a timidly played note, as does God. We must act with conviction, just as we must pray with conviction, and that requires faith. Now, going back to the stuff about commerce, buying and selling stuff, think about the lesson that Jesus taught us in the parable of the talents. Now, you can read about this in Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, or in Luke 19, but I'm going to quickly paraphrase. A man was going on a trip, and he gave 3 of his servants money to manage for him while he was away. He gave one of them 5 talents, and another one 2 talents, and a third one he gave 1 talent. Now, some translations will call these bags of gold, but it was a lot of money. Okay, a talent would be equivalent to what you or I might earn in 20 years of hard labor. It's a lot of money. Anyway, 2 of the servants put the money to work and managed to double it by the time their master came back. Okay. The third one, the one that was only given 1 talent, he buried his talent in the ground. Okay. Now, the master praised his first 2 servants. He said to each of them in turn, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in the few things, and I will put you in charge of many things." And best of all, he said this, "Come and share in your master's happiness." Come and share in your master's happiness. How much would you like to share in the happiness of some rich CEO, something like that, or the happiness of your loved ones, or best yet, in God's happiness? Now, then there's the servant, the one who buried his talent in the ground. Now, he was afraid to disappoint his master. He acknowledged that his master had been successful in financial matters, reaping where he did not sow and such. Now, it doesn't say specifically, but I imagine that he was afraid of disappointing his master, at trying and failing. He figured that if he did nothing, if he brought back to the master exactly what he was getting, how can the master be mad? But see, God doesn't want us to bury our talents, okay? Like Mr. Harry, he hates a timid note. Be loud and wrong. Get in the game. You'll win some, you'll lose some, but God works it all out for the good. Now, our best efforts are going to sometimes result in challenges, okay? Like we're here together at the ARC, and for most of us, our best efforts landed us right here. One man here told me that he put his best effort forward in this program, and that resulted in being kicked out twice. But he identified some good that had come from those occasions. And like I said, God works it all out for good. And the following passage will speak to this point. And we read through James. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. The testing of your faith produces perseverance. When you have these challenges, you should rejoice because it's going to make you stronger. You know, it's going to infuse perseverance into your life. You're going to have a reference point. You're going to identify, okay, I've gone through that. I know I can make it through that without drinking, without stumbling, without falling, continuing to be able to go forward, to persevere. And let perseverance finish its work, that you may be mature and complete. Finish the journey. You know, persevere through the 6 months that you're here in this program. Persevere through whatever challenge it is that you're facing. You know, it'll make you stronger. It'll make you mature and complete, not lacking anything. And if you have questions, if you lack wisdom, you should ask God. Give generously and without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. If you go to prayer, you're considering leaving this program perhaps, you know, and going to live with this woman because she's promised you, you know, the 3rd bedroom and access to her car, and you know you can get this job, and, you know, so you're going to leave this program and go do that, you know, because you've had enough. And you pray on the matter, which you should, and it's a blessing if you do. You pray on the matter, and what happens? 3 of your friends come to you and say, man, don't do that. You know, that's not a good idea. Don't leave the program. You know, you go to a kid, you know, and ask him about it. He said, that's a mistake, you know. You go to Brian Stewart, and he says, that's a terrible idea. You know, God has given you wisdom, but if you must believe and not doubt. If you leave up out of here, that person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. If you ask for advice, and sometimes advice from God, wisdom from God is given to you through people, all right? You need to believe and take and accept that advice, even when it comes to you from imperfect people, because we're not going to be perfect. None of us are. But this is how God works. He works through us. Now, as we pointed out, God works out everything for the good. Now, the resulting implication, of course, is that not everything is going to be good. One of the ways that this disparity plays itself out is with the concept of fairness. Now, I've talked about this before with my guys in the warehouse. Another unlikely role model of mine, another individual whose advice I didn't take, was a guy named Nazarene Griffin. Okay, there might be one in this here who's heard of him, maybe not. I don't know. You had to have been in New York. But he was the executive director of a work program in New York that I was involved with years ago when I lived there in Manhattan. And I didn't follow his advice then at a critical juncture in my life, and it cost me dearly. One thing that he used to say is that fairness doesn't mean that everybody gets the same thing. It means that everybody gets what they need. Fairness doesn't mean that everybody gets the same thing. It means that everybody gets what they need, and we all need different things. See, back then I was enamored with the conspicuous consumption of all the pretty New Yorkers there, and their fancy clothes, and their watches, and their mobile phones, and I wondered what they had, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't have what they had. And their unlimited MetroFare cards. Mm-hmm. You know, that's an important thing. If you got a monthly card in New York, and it's just like having a car. You can go anywhere. Anyway, I was offered a couple of different jobs when I graduated that program. One was $30,000 a year working for a loan company, or Nazarene offered me a job working at Ready, Willing, and Able, helping to teach people computers, but he was only going to be able to pay me $21,000 a year. Now, 30 is not much, but it sounded like, so a guy had nothing, it sounded like, you know, infinite amount of money, and 21 sounded like nothing. Anyway, I went to him with my conundrum, and he gave me the hard sell. You know, he told me that my choice was to go work for a soulless financial services company, or to work for him, helping others as I have been helped. Now, story, of course, you can guess. I went for the money and ended up relapsing in short order. See, in Romans 12, 6-8, Paul tells us that we have different gifts according to the grace each given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it's to serve, then serve. If it's teaching, then teach. If it's to encourage, then give encouragement. And if it's giving, then give generously. If it's to lead, do that diligently. And if it's to show mercy, then do it cheerfully. Now, this may mean that we are turned down for a job opportunity that was offered to somebody else. You know, we may have grown up rich while others are grown up poor. You know, some had plenty, we didn't. See, when I graduated the ARC program last year, I applied for 2 jobs that were supposedly easy to get. You know, I was impatient. I didn't go through Brian Stewart. I was in a hurry. You know, and I went down to Coastal and filled out their application down there because I heard, you know, you apply on day 1, and you know, they send you for your drug test on day 2, and on day 3 you got your job and you start working. I also applied to a company called Dial America, which is a telemarketing company. Now, I hate telemarketing, but, you know, it was an easy job to get. I was in a hurry. I was anxious to get going. You know, I admit that. Now, guess what? Neither company hired me. God had a different opportunity in mind, and I needed to be patient for it and obedient to it. Ironically, I eventually found myself at a crossroads similar to the one I experienced in New York City with Nazarene Griffin. Now, but this time, I took his advice, along with the advice of several others, and the ultimate result of that is my ability to stand in your presence today. Now, see, patience is an act of trust and an act of faith. On the way over here, my roommate Vince reminded me of Proverbs 27 verse 1, which says, "Don't boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring." We need to focus on right now. It's great to plan. It's great to look forward to things. But oftentimes that produces anxiety, and it takes us off the prize. It takes us off what we should be focused on. See, in going through this whole process, after my graduation here at the Salvation Army, I didn't really know what was going to happen with me. You know, when I was applying for a job as resident manager, I wasn't given any constant assurances that I was going to receive it. You know, this job I'm in now, it took 2 months of interviews and applications and background checks. And along the way, the Salvation Army was silent to me. You know, and what God was doing there was teaching me to remain in the moment instead of looking forward. Because all of a sudden they tell me, yeah, in 6 weeks you will have that job. Then I'd just be focused on that, and I would miss that whole 6 weeks. I want to make one more point, and it's about trusting people. And I hope that you take this point to heart, because God works through people. And it's one of the ways that he speaks to us. It's often how he imposes his will in our lives, acting in mysterious ways. And this part takes faith, but I believe that we were all put here together. And he places certain people in our path. He gives you a certain supervisor. He gives you a certain resident manager, a certain counselor, a certain roommate. Through these people, he's trying to do a work in our lives. Now, where does it say that in the Bible? And read Psalm 139. Read Romans 13. We need to cooperate in that process, and these are going to be imperfect people. It says that in the Bible too. David did terrible things in the midst of his service to God. He arranged for his own general to be killed in battle to cover up the affair he was having with a man's wife. We need to stop demanding perfection for the people that God has put in our lives. We'll never find it. Mr. Stewart forgets to do something that he promised to do for you. Get over it. Too many of you use your counselor's mistakes and imperfections as excuses to stop trusting the process and to take matters in your own hands. You know, it's going to be your downfall. You don't like Willie in the sorting room? Is Ken too hard on you? Miss D in the kitchen got you down? Maybe God is trying to teach you to deal with different supervisors, with difficult supervisors. Help you to understand and develop some coping skills to deal with your own anger. or your own impatience, or your resentment of authority. One of the required actions to exercise faith and defeat fear is trust. We must trust God's plan for our lives. We must trust in His promises. We must trust in His forgiveness and grace. We must trust, and trust in action is to step out with faith in God as our only assurance that everything is going to work out as it should. And this concept is laid out eloquently in Galatians 5:1, where it says, where Paul writes, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery." Are you ready to be free today?
Yeah.
Do you want to share in the happiness of your true master, your Father in heaven?
Yeah.
You know, don't you want that power that comes with that blessed assurance that all will work together for good if you'll just put in the effort?
Yep.
That assurance comes for those who love the Lord, those elect who have been called to come before Him.
Amen.
And the altar is open. Why don't you come and confess before Him that you've sinned all your life? Come and tell Him that you want to be forgiven. That you know that it's only through Christ that you can be redeemed. You know that it is only through His death on the cross, His sacrifice, that gives us any inheritance into your Father's happiness. Come and lay your burdens before Him now and get access to that power. Maybe you've already made that decision. Maybe you've already been saved, but you want the opportunity to restore your relationship with Jesus Christ, to reaffirm your commitment to walk in His way. Maybe it's been a while since you've felt the touch of His saving grace. Maybe you've been disconnected for too long. Come now and kneel before Him. Take His yoke. His yoke is light. His burden is easy. I know. It's an easy thing. Now, with every head bowed and every eye closed, let's come now to the presence of the Lord and Savior. Maybe there are some who don't want to